Pen Made Mightier without wood.
Hey, welcome to Pen Made Mightier. I'm Gideon Ray. Today we're going to be talking about one of Netflix's smash hits, House of Cards. If you haven't seen this, you really need to watch it. I honestly think it's a show for everybody. Well, maybe not if you're under 18. It's got very compelling characters, a really deep, intricate plot that's super well laid out, very well organized, and very well acted, I will say. And Netflix really set the bar high for themselves with this one. Anything they try and follow it up with is going to have to compare to House of Cards, and I do not envy them in that task. But beyond all that, something made it stand out to me in a way that I haven't seen in a long time, and that was the use of a literary device that we don't see a lot anymore, called the aside.
What the hell's an aside?
Kirk has always thought he's known more than me, so I made him the director and editor. Here he is not knowing what a simple aside is. I could probably tell him it was a chocolate-covered goldfish, and he'd beg me for one for his next Christmas present. People I have to deal with. Well, Kirk, I'll tell you. The aside is any time a character exits his arena and confers directly with the audience, breaking the fourth wall and talking to you directly at home. The aside was used heavily in the stage. Shakespeare loved using it, but it was also a heavy staple of 80s television, with shows like Saved by the Bell, Mork and Mindy.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
What do you do when you get stuck on a movie line with a guy like this behind you?
This is my 9th sick day this semester. It's getting pretty tough coming up with new illnesses.
It's career week at school, and everybody's excited. I'm not. It's the first sign that our parents aren't going to support us forever.
I'd never done a crazy thing in my life before that night. Why is it? If a man kills another man in battle, it's called heroic. Yet if he kills a man in the heat of passion, it's called murder.
Hello! What do you think you're doing? Only me and Garth get to talk to the camera.
Well, you get the idea. Basically, it was so overused that it became almost a joke. Well, I guess it did become a joke. It definitely became a trope, and we stopped seeing it after that. And this device, which holds so much power, went neglected through pretty much all of the 90s and 2000s, with a few rare exceptions, most of which I remember being seen as pretty cheesy, although I'm sure examples exist that'll prove me wrong. But beyond that, it just didn't really add much of substance to anything. When it was used on the stage, it was used to convey emotion that you couldn't see because we didn't have glasses and people were really far away. Basically, any time there was an emotion that you couldn't convey through loud, boisterous dialogue, something subtle that you wanted to get across to your audience, an aside was an easy way to do that. But with the advent of film, it became more of something that you just sort of used. You did it because it was classic. But the emotion was already prominently displayed. You could tell if a character was happy or really depressed or super angry, and you didn't need some aside explaining it all to you as if you were a child. It became very cheesy, and it really delved into trope territory hard, so it kind of vanished. But then, out of nowhere, wham! House of Cards appears, and House of Cards uses this so well that I could not be a little amazed.
Power is a lot like real estate. It's all about location, location, location. The closer you are to the source, the higher your property value. Centuries from now, when people watch this footage, who will they see smiling just at the edge of the frame?
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And really, the aside does 4 things for Francis Underwood that I can't really think of how I'd convey without it. Not properly, not to the true diligence the show does. It gives us his honest, personal thoughts. For Francis, this is a rarity. Francis is this manipulative politician who will say anything to get people to bend the way that he wants them to. But he doesn't do that in the asides. Why? Because you're an objective third party. You're omniscient. You know everything as it happens, and because of that, he feels no need to lie to you. This means you can see Francis's true colors in a way that no other character in the show does. You get a direct line to his soul, thanks to this aside.
It'll be right up. My one guilty pleasure is a good rack of ribs, even at 7:30 in the morning. I have the whole place to myself. Freddie sometimes opens up just for me. Where I come from in South Carolina, people didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. A rack of ribs was a luxury.
Beyond that, you start to actually develop a personal relationship with Francis. You build a rapport between the two of you as he starts confiding in you, sharing special information that nobody else gets, and he shares it with you in that friendly, jovial way that only we Southern boys can truly pull off.
She's here.
Send her in. It's quite rare for a president's chief of staff to climb the hill. A gesture of respect, no doubt, or desperation. I'm guessing she'll say Donald Blythe for education. Let's see if I'm right.
This friendship between the two of you really makes you empathize with Francis more. It makes you see things from his perspective and really consider if maybe it's not for the best that he gets what he wants. And I think without that personal friendship, we'd hate him a lot more. And that's because it's manipulating audience emotion. It toys with us because we've all had friends that can twist us just the right way, and Francis does that to us. I really want X. I'm only doing this because of Y. You have to understand. You're with me. You understand. You're smart. I can tell. And he plays with us, and he pulls at us, and he makes us think what he wants us to think. And because of that, we end up kind of on his side. Unless you're real careful or adamant, or if you just want to be a jerk and ruin the show for yourself, say, no, I'm not doing it. Not going to participate. Just not me. It's not me. You can do it that way. Actually, kind of fun to do it that way on second viewing, but I don't know if I'd be able to. The guy's kind of like Dracula. I just want to listen to him like, okay.
I can't get this past Hammerschmidt.
Remember this moment when you resisted me. When you said the words, then there is no story. Get a good night's sleep, Miss Barnes. You have a big day tomorrow.
So it creates a friendship between the viewer and Francis himself. And that's kind of cool, because Francis doesn't really have many friends that he can really confide in. Not to the intimacy that he confides in us in the asides. In fact, I really can't think of anybody, except for maybe his wife. But even his wife, there are secrets that he keeps from her that he doesn't keep from us. And it's that closeness that makes us want to play for his team. But him sharing all of this information in his asides puts a lot of distance between what we know to be true and what he's telling everybody else. And then when we see him interacting with everybody else and we see what they want to tell us, we have to assume that there's a similar distance between what they're saying and what's really true. It makes us distrust all the other characters. Francis is the only person that we can believe in, and that makes us side with him. I think at least a little bit.
Keep me posted.
I'll talk with Donald. I'll check in with you later in the week.
Terrific.
Did you smell that? The smugness, the false deference. She thinks I can be bought with a pair of tickets. What am I, a whore in post-war Berlin, salivating over free stockings and chocolate? What she's asking will cost far more than that.
So what kinds of stories should be using this classic literary device a little bit more? Well, anything where your main character cast are a bunch of elegant liars. Anytime when people are going to get confused because they can't separate what's true from what they're telling everybody, an aside could be your answer. I mean, it works for Francis. It gives us a direct line, and it knows when we can believe him and when we can't. More stories that could use this thing to greater effect: villains as your protagonist. We don't get enough villains as protagonists as it is, and that's because it's hard to make your audience identify and empathize with a villain. This aside lets you do that, because it lets you get over all of that facade, that tough exterior that all bad guys have to exude, and it lets us get right into who they are as a person, without any sort of barriers. Basically, any story that has in it something that should be conveyed to the audience that isn't easily or eloquently done through normal dialogue. If you're having to write clunky dialogue, and you know you have to write clunky dialogue just because character X has to say this thing, consider it aside. You don't have to, but consider it. Because at the very least, an aside could be more direct, and it's certainly going to be faster, and it might not be as jarring as you really think.
There's some pretty harsh shit with the old guy back there, right? But whatever, he's creepy. Fuck him. Don't worry about him. Anyhow, so thanks for coming. Thanks for taking the trip to LA with me. I mean, if I had to sum it up, and I do, because, you know, it's like the end, I would say that this movie is about friendship.
What about you guys? Do you have a favorite aside from some media I'm not covering? What would you like to see use the aside a bit more in modern culture? Maybe you'd like to see it in S.H.I.E.L.D. Maybe you think Korra could have benefited from it. I, for one, wouldn't mind seeing it in Supernatural. I think it would help cut through the mire of that dialogue sometimes to just have a little bit of a heart-to-heart. Stop with all this fawny brother bullcrap.
Dean, come back! I love you. I love you too. Great. What? I miss your musk. Okay.
Whatever your thoughts are, leave them down in the comments below. Hit all the buddy buttons, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for sticking with me. Have a great day.